And the haters misread Trump's foreign policy. Well, the president has been routinely hit for upsetting international norms, and critics are quick to call him a bully for not sucking up abroad. But why should he? And why would he? Through his blunt talk, he successfully squeezed trade concessions from the EU. He's gotten our NATO partners to pay their fair share, and now he even has brought China to the table. All of the things that no recent president could accomplish. But it isn't just that. His prudent aversion to military action abroad stays true to the America First ethos he ran on. So the bottom line is, despite what you hear, America is now taken more seriously on the world stage. Here to discuss all this is retired Colonel Doug Macgregor and Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, a senior fellow and military expert at Defense Priorities. Colonel Macgregor, let's start with you. To what do you attribute this disconnect between the so-called experts and Trump's actual international successes?
I think there are a couple of things. First of all, Donald Trump understood from the very beginning that all of these trade relationships, just like most of these treaties for mutual security, were all based on conditions that existed 50, 60, 70 years ago. They don't exist today. And we have effectively been exploited, leveraged, if you will, very effectively by almost everyone for decades. He came in and said, look, I'm not going to do it anymore. And he is a president who's also said the business of America is business, not war. So you have an interesting combination. He's zeroing in on these agreements. And look, I've been to Asia, to Japan, to Korea. I've done business over there. They all said, why did it take so long for your president to, for a president to come to power, finally realizes we're taking advantage of you? They know it. The Europeans are unhappy. They're whining children because they've been on easy street for years. But the Japanese in particular know when he talks about security, you heard his comments about mutual security, they know that they've been on the receiving end of enormous benefit while we defended them.
But Colonel Davis, when President Trump's comments were made public about this is kind of a one-way street with Japan, you might as well have thought that he had taken a weapon to a samurai sword to Abe. And instead, basically, he was saying, gosh, a lot of time has gone by between the time that we initially kind of agreed to this and now. And this is not 1995. Our economy is in a much different place. Right. It's strong now, but we still have a lot of debt. And yet the left is acting like they're the warmongers now. Like they want us to be engaged in all these places. So what? It's really interesting. They should like Trump because he's not getting us into all these wars. That's what I find fascinating.
Right, and of course, they can't do that. They can't actually like Trump, even if he's doing policies that they might otherwise have liked. But really, Doug kind of hit on a big issue there. It's the same thing both in Europe and in Japan, is that the conditions that started with NATO and that started with our alliance in the East, they're radically different than they are today. And it's no longer appropriate for us to continue to pay and continue to provide the same level of resources that we did at that time. It's time to balance that more, and Trump is right.
And they said he was going to blow up all international alliances. Remember that? He was going to blow up the world. Then that didn't happen. Then he's going to blow up NATO. That didn't happen. He's going to blow up all other Asian alliances. None of that's happened. Instead, he has pretty much gone down the road of principled realism.
Yes.
Which is so radically different from a town where people make money from being wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
I've never seen a business where people can be more wrong consistently on foreign policy, the economy, trade, immigration, and there's no consequences.
Well, remember, what President Trump does better than anyone else, and this is why we voted for him, he disrupts the money flow. Yeah.
Oh, and they hate that.
And
the
you have all of
consultancy class, the pollsters.
Exactly.
And it drives those people crazy because they're used to operating with impunity.
Yes.
Being wrong means never having to say you're sorry.
Exactly. Yeah, no accountability.
Yeah, and some things needed to be broken up. Some things needed to be blown up. We needed to not just do what standard establishment Washington, both Republican and Democrat, has been doing for decades. It's time to change things to the better.
And I want to get to President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin's bilat last week at the G20. Listen to this exchange.
Fake news. Great term, isn't it? You don't have a problem in Russia. We have. You don't have.
Well, Putin says, well, we have it too, but they went totally crazy. And by the way, the president's obviously, ribbing the press here. But by the reaction from some, you would have thought that he just gave Putin our nuclear codes.
Yeah.
Who is he aligning himself with? Our adversaries, murderers, tyrants, dictators.
I'm certain there's part of Donald Trump that would like to put some journalists in jail on a regular basis.
I'm so disappointed in the president not standing up to Putin and say, get out or else.
Did the president just basically invite Putin to interfere in 2020?
Totally. This is comical. And this former FBI assistant something. What's all this? What's all this about? I mean, so was Donald Trump supposed to look at Vladimir Putin and just throw down with him in public? Because that's what diplomacy is, just insulting someone in public.
Well, Donald Trump understands that you accomplish more quietly in a room on an individual basis by understanding everyone's interests. That's something that Donald Trump has done very well. He's zeroed in on interests, but he's a realist. When you talk about Crimea, we're out to punish Russia in perpetuity for seizing control of Crimea. Crimea was part of Russia longer than Texas has been in the Union. He knows that. This is ridiculous.
America's not going to go to war over Crimea. I'm sorry. Who wants to send your son to battle in Crimea for Crimea?
And there are
or the Ukraine. And I love the Ukraine, but no one's going to support that. And liberals won't either, by the way.
And there are no Russian armies massing on the borders of Europe. They're not there.
Well,
they don't
exist. Their economy
exist.
is the size of what, France, basically?
Oh, it's smaller than South Korea's.
Yeah.
It's smaller than South Korea.
So we're treating it like this is 1984, 1983,
exactly.
and Andropov is president, like the good old days of the KGB former master being president of Russia. Now, I want to go back to March 2012 because I was spending time last week reading through all the old comments about this moment when Obama was meeting with Medvedev, the Russian president Medvedev, and they were talking about possibly making a deal on missile defense. And he said on all these issues, but particularly missile defense, this can be solved, but it's important for him, meaning Putin, to give me space. Well, Medvedev responded, and he said, yeah, I understand your message about space. Then this happened.
This is my last election. Yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir.
So, by the way, people freaked out when Trump tapped Putin on the back today. He has tapped him on the knee. He practically gave him a little squeeze there. But he didn't know he was being recorded.
Right.
Trump knew he was being recorded in Osaka.
He doesn't care because he knows he's right. And most Americans watching it know he's right.
Okay, look at the headline NPR ran in 2012, Colonel Davis. GOP seizes on Obama open mic comment to Russian leader. Obama was merely stating the obvious. Presidents are constrained by what they can do before an election, by political realities of U.S. campaigns. They totally take Obama's side on that.
Right,
and that was actually pretty nefarious because it went to policy, and he didn't think he was being recorded.
Right.
And they just gave him a total pass.
And that just shows that this is there's so much it's going to be politically motivated. And the fact is, there's only one country on earth that could actually pose an existential threat to the United States.
China.
It makes no sense. Well, I'm talking about the nuclear threat from Russia. It makes no sense to make them our adversary.
Oh, I see, yeah.
To make them our adversary.
Now,
we should try to have good relations with them to our benefit.
And Trump wants to have good relationships, if possible, with every country.
Exactly.
And I think there's a lot of military establishment folks like, whoa, wait a second, we need new missile systems here. Like, we need to keep the machine going, as Eisenhower called it, the military-industrial complex. But Trump, I want to be friends, if possible. And if not, the hell and fury of the U.S. military is going to rain down on you. That's a better position than just running willy-nilly into these countries.
It's far better, yeah. It's far better to defend your interests by not making enemies than it is to always have a barrel of a gun.
We don't want Russia and China to keep doing those military drills, do we, Colonel McGregor?
No. And forcing them together, which is what's been going on for the last decade, by creating cohesion where there otherwise would not exist, is a disaster. But there's another thing here that your viewers need to pay attention to with that Obama quote. This election that's coming is going to be exactly what you saw with Obama. Everyone in the media, virtually in all the industries, on the internet, everyone is going to line up against Donald Trump. This is going to be a tough election, and we've got to be prepared for that. The left knows what's at stake. If you watched the 11 the other night talk about their concepts of Bolshevism and socialism and communism as the future of America, they can't sell that very effectively. But they can destroy, in their minds, Trump. And that's ultimately what we're going to watch. We have really
People got to pay
watch
attention. This is, I mean, we joke around sometimes. This is deadly serious. Deadly serious for the country. Open borders, lack of sovereignty,
Yes.
no liberty, high taxes, global order, global bureaucracies grow in power. Fantastic conversation, both of you. Love having you on. Thanks so much for being here. And when this Ingraham Angle special returns, Dr.